find other great podcasts like this one at podmoth.network.
Coffee, cough, heck. I am the ghost of sickly bones.
COVID has invaded the podcast, but you have beaten it back with your sword made of spines.
I did, and both my fists. I pounded that COVID until it was black, blue, and only bones.
Only bone dust.
Fuck yeah. Suck it, COVID.
In olden days, a glimpse of femur was only for morbid dreamers, but you're not alone. Bring anything bones. Two goofy gals with deathly interest go on a skeleton inquest in your headphones. Anything bones.
Hello and welcome to Anything Bones. I am Sophie Schwartz, therefore I am Sophie Schwartz.
I am Katelyn. What'd you put in that body of water? Heart.
And this is the podcast where we talk about bones and bone-related topics. And we're back,
Hell yeah.
baby.
Back in a big way. 101 after a brief hiatus.
Yeah, so much has gone down that I forgot that we were now in the triple digis.
That's right. Glad to be back. It's been a nice beginning of the year, minus the Kovo for Sofo. But the Maple Daddy show is great.
Thank
for all
you.
of you that just listened to episode 100 and are wondering.
Yeah, it went fantastic. We sold out. We oversold the show. I think the fire department would not have been pleased with how we behaved.
Well, we know some famous theater fires.
Yeah.
At least one.
I know, and yet we still are willing to pack in
10
to 15 more people than we were supposed to have. I don't know. It's difficult because it's like, I feel like everyone has decided COVID is over in a way where it's like, people are like, oh, like, you know, maybe I wear a mask here or there. But like, I feel like a lot of people have decided it's done, but it really isn't. So,
Right.
you know, if you're...
Your bout with COVID has re-inspired me to get masky with it.
Well, I mask every day at work, and I really felt much safer being around my coworkers with it on going back to work, even though I'm feeling much better. But
Yeah, you're not like contagious anymore. But you've broke your almost 3-year streak
I
of
know.
not having COVID.
I was really hoping to get through this whole thing without seeing it, but
It comes for us all.
it does. It comes for us all.
Well, since the hiatus, I got a job. I actually start in a few days. It's also in healthcare scheduling. So I'm going to be back to the mask. Like, you know, when I'm in the office, but it's a hybrid position, which I'm really excited about.
Yeah, and we're so happy for you because your main coworker is going to be Minnie the cat.
Yeah. Those are days I'm looking forward to. Hopefully she doesn't interrupt serious phone calls with her whining. But I feel like if she does, people will like it.
I mean,
It's a little extra flavor.
Minnie has some very interesting thoughts about cardiac health.
Yeah. I also, not intending to do something for the podcast, I went to this weird museum in Portland this most recent weekend, and I thought it was going to be kind of like a Ripley's Believe It or Not type of situation. It's called the Peculiarium.
Oh my God, that's very good.
The full name, is the Freaky But True Peculiarium, and it's in Northwest Portland. You can do the whole thing in 30 minutes. So, you know,
We love that.
It was very quick. Highlights were there was a giant replica of a Krampus that you could sit on his lap and take pictures. I skipped that part, but it was
Oh.
fine. But the thing that made the whole trip worth it was that there were 2 fucking vampire hunting kits on display in this peculiarium.
That is so wild to me that like a random museum in Portland has these fucking vampire hunting kits.
Yeah. So I sent you a picture, Soph, of each of them.
Oh my god, look at these. This is...
I'll post these on the Instagram, too.
Oh, they are just as we had reported. There are vials. There's a crucifix. There's a fucking knife in there. There's hella steaks. I see coffin nails. I see candles. I see garlic. This is the one with the plaque, and then the one without the plaque. Also fan-fucking-tastic. Although, I gotta say, those steaks are not killing anyone.
They were enormous steaks, so dull. But I'm gonna read you the like plaque from the first one, which has a grammatical error in the first sentence.
Nice.
This kit from the 1890s.
No.
It contains everything required to kill or defend against a vampire. Dr. Elwood won this kit in a volleyball game in the 1950s from famed vampire hunter and chef Myron Purdy. Purdy was a student of the legendary vampire hunter from Fresno, Fritz Montague. It is rumored that Elwood's volleyball serve was the fastest ever.
There is so much in there. There is so much in there. First of all, was hard to parse was that the 1890s is possessive. He won it in a volleyball game?
I have so many more questions than answers.
Was it and then the other one had no plaque.
Yeah. The other one had no plaque at all and was out in the open. So
oh my God.
I could have touched it if I was so bold.
You're better than me. I would have it would not have been boldness, but sure compulsive curiosity to touch.
Anyway, it was nice because while the museum itself was so-so, I mean, it was fun. It was an experience. I don't need to go again, but it was fun. It was nice to be able to impress the person I was with by saying, oh yeah, I know what these are. They're bullshit. Like, nobody ever hunted any vampires with these. And it's like, yeah, duh. Like,
when you see them in museums and you know what they are, it is kind of like, wow, these are pretty hokey. But like,
yeah.
He had the fastest volleyball serve.
Yeah.
Who is this guy?
I don't know. I didn't get more detail. Those were the only pictures I took. I was just like taking it all in.
No, you took great pictures.
Well, should we slide on into Bone Town?
Oh, I think we've got to. It's been so long.
Yeah. Dust off the cobwebs.
I was just gonna say my bone throne has more cobwebs than bones these days.
Damn.
I know.
I just saw a massive spider. Luckily, it was like outside on my balcony, but Minnie was out there doing her thing. She likes to hang out on the balcony, and she cries if she doesn't get her balcony time. Don't worry, everybody, it's safe. She's very safe, and I watch her. But anyway, this enormous spider sort of walked by, and I was like, okay, Minnie, like, come inside. I'm done with this. This spider has no place here.
This spider has no place in our home, please.
Please stay outside, giant bitch.
That's what people say to me all the time when I put on my big platforms. They say, please stay outside, giant bitch.
It's because you're so tall in your high heels.
I was wearing some of my new boots in a Walgreens, and I asked this woman who must have been in her 50s or 60s working at the Walgreens, and I was towering over this woman. And I was like, this is not the type of person I mean to intimidate with these shoes. Like, I almost wanted to like lower myself to her and be like, this is not for you. Like,
that's
like
funny.
I lower myself to you, elder.
Yeah. Do you need anything off the top shelf?
Yeah, because I can do that for you.
Yeah, in a non-condescending way, you know?
Exactly.
I get that in grocery stores because I'm 5'9", and I have been for a long time. So every once in a while in the grocery store, I'll walk by somebody and they'll be like, can you grab that?
I would love that. I'd be like, hell yeah, bitch, let me get it.
Yeah. Turns out I'm extremely approachable. Anyway.
You are. Whenever we're in a public place with like crowds and stuff, invariably some like either lost or like out of his cell phone battery child will come up to Katelyn and be like, "Can I call my parents or my friend from your phone?"
It's happened to me 2 or 3 times where a child has come up to me needing to use my phone, and it's fine. I think it's good because I know I'm trustworthy.
Bitch is approachable and trustworthy.
But you also want to watch to make sure they don't steal your phone.
Yeah, no. I'm like, I would not let these. This is the difference between you and I. I'm like, no, get your snotty hands off here.
I put the difference is I put the number in. I don't just hand them my phone. I'm like, what's the number? And then I give them the phone.
And then they run away with it like a little Oliver Twist.
Yeah, they could make up the number. Just 555 555 5555. And then I go, here you go.
Here you go.
Anyway, Bone Town. Sorry.
Bone Town. I'm sorry. All right. So, gotta do sources. Just getting it right out of the way. So we have Britannica, we have Lund University Records, Atlas Obscura, iflscience.com, and medscape.com, and another Wikipedia, just for good measure.
Yeah, sounds medical.
Slightly, actually.
Sounds scientific, at least.
A bit. My mom keeps sending me things on Instagram.
Oh, shout out to Suzanne.
Yeah. Wherever she is, she's laughing at a meme. So I want to start off my topic by talking about René Descartes.
Oh, yeah, that name is familiar, but I don't know why.
You probably know this guy. He's a French philosopher, scientist, and mathematician.
Oh, yeah, of course. Of course. I knew he was French.
Yeah, he started doing his nasty thing in 1596 and then was out of this world by 1650.
Okay, nice.
So, can you guess what one of his famous sayings?
Oh, I am what I am. No.
I am what I am. I hate Mondays.
Yeah. No. Live, laugh, love?
Oh, so close. You were actually kind of close. He's the I think, therefore I am guy.
Shoot. I kind of thought it was something quippy.
Yeah, he has a lot of quippy things to say.
Yeah, cool. I took philosophy one time in my life, and it was in high school.
You familiar with Cartesian dualism?
Again, that sounds familiar, but you're gonna need to help me out.
I skipped the philosophy classes, to be honest.
Mm-hmm.
So I only knew of him through The Good Place, where they talk a lot of philosophy. Yeah. So one of his things was this dualism, Cartesian dualism. I'm not sure if I'm saying that right, but it's mind-body dualism. So it was the metaphysical argument that the mind and the body are two different things that kind of work together to make you what you are.
Cool. Yeah. Sounds dope.
Yeah. And this will become pretty relevant later for him.
Cool. Yeah, sure.
A mind-body duality. So he also loved math. He was a big math guy.
Who doesn't?
Yeah. And then I'll be sprinkling in some of his quotes throughout here. But one thing I thought was very interesting is that he didn't ever get married, but he did end up having a daughter that died of scarlet fever when I think she was about 5.
Aww.
And he wrote of the situation, quote, "I am not one of those philosophers who think a man should not cry."
Oh, true.
Yeah.
Good for you, guy.
That just felt very modern to me.
Yeah. Hell yeah.
So of course he died.
Yeah.
We're not here to talk about his life, unfortunately.
His death, on the other hand.
We never are, yeah. He did head on down to that great beef city in the sky in 1650. In Stockholm, Sweden, probably from pneumonia, around 53 years old. And he was actually in Stockholm to help the Queen of Sweden set up an Academy of Science.
Oh, very cool.
Yeah. Queen Christina was her name, and she was about 22 at the time. And I like this, that she made Descartes get up at like 5 a.m. every morning and like come teach her lessons in this like big, drafty, cold ass Swedish castle. And it made him miserable. He fucking hated it because he's was always been a little bit like sickly. And so he was like,
Oh, no.
I always sleep in.
I need my beauty sleep for my health.
Well, eventually people, kind of theorized that because he was in such a cold, damp environment, it like heavily contributed to him getting pneumonia.
Yeah, didn't help anything.
No, certainly not. But he passed away, but he was a Catholic in a Protestant country. So he ended up being buried in a graveyard that was mainly used for orphans.
Oh.
I know.
Oh, that's sad on a couple different levels.
Yeah, but I mean, soon the people of France campaigned to bring his body home, and they were successful with that about 16 years after his burial in 1666.
Damn.
They got him disinterred and brought him on down to France, where he ended up being buried until the 1790s, when they were like, hey, French Revolution's about to pop off. I think we should dig up all the important people so that they don't get stolen and, like, degraded.
Yeah, that probably would have happened, so I guess good on him.
No, definitely a good amount of foresight for that one.
Yeah.
But, all the foresight in the world cannot fix what is constant, which is the practice of grave robbing. Because when they go to dig him back up to put him in the ground after the French Revolution, they're like, oof, some parts are missing.
Oh my God.
We had one job.
Oh my God. I thought for a second you were about to say we had one jaw.
No, they had zero jaw, Katelyn, because there was no skull.
Yeah, that's bad. Yeah, that's pretty major.
No skull, so zero jaw for them.
Okay. Yeah, that didn't just degrade overnight. Where's that skull?
Yeah, and it's said that pieces of the skull were in the coffin, possibly, and those were possibly made into rings by a guy named Alexander Lanier.
Oh, that's fucked up.
But we don't know. I just thought that was an interesting rumor.
Oh, somebody made a bone ring, 100%.
Well, if history's taught me anything, people are very horny to make things out of famous dead people's stuff. So
yeah, I don't like that.
No,
I don't know. I don't know.
We can debate bone jewelry later.
Yes. This is not the time.
It's not the time. It's 1818, and they are going to rebury him after the revolution, and they have noticed that there is no skull. People were pretty upset about it, and one person who endeavored to find out what had happened to it was someone who was present when the casket was opened, and that's a chemist named Johns Jacob Belzerelzius.
Sounds like a trustworthy dude.
Well, he was visiting from Sweden.
Sure.
And he ends up going back to Sweden a couple years later in 1821. And through his grapevine of scholar friends, he learns that the skull that had belonged to Descartes was possibly purchased at an auction by a casino mogul. I know.
Why?
So we never get any more information on that one, because the next step is that our guy, Johns Jacob, is convincing the man to sell him the skull so that he can return it to France.
Yeah.
And he does, and he's super confident that this skull belongs to Descartes. And there's a lot of evidence to back that up, because written across the forehead in Swedish of the skull is, in Swedish, quote, "The Skull of Descartes, taken by J.F. Planstrom, the year 1666, at the time when the body was being returned to France." That's all written on the skull.
Damn. They did not leave any detail out. They're like, hey, look at this. This is what happened. These are some very detail-oriented grave robbers.
I know, which made me raise my eyebrows, actually.
Yeah.
And I can see your eyebrows going up, too. too detailed, these grave robbers.
Yeah, that's weird.
So the French Academy of Sciences works for a while to establish the chain of custody for this skull, and they're pretty satisfied with it. They think the first chain is that guy Planstrom, whose name is on the skull, who the skull says, hey, took me.
Yeah.
He was one of the guards that was watching over Descartes' body in 1666. And so he would have had ample time to take the skull. And it was also noted by historians that he was in a lot of debt.
Ooh. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Makes sense then.
So he, apparently took this skull, used it to pay off some of his debts, and then one of his creditors gave it to a Stockholm brewer. And then upon the brewer's death, it then goes to his son. And then from there, it's a long line of collectors down to the guy who bought it at the auction, and then to our friend John's Jacob.
Okay. From the final, buyer is the casino guy.
Yeah, the casino guy, then the guy who's like, I would like to return this to France.
Yeah, let's get some evidence on it.
So now the skull rests, separate from the body, but it's in the Musée de Homme. It's in a French museum.
Homme?
Yeah.
Hum.
Home.
I think that's just human. Human museum?
Human museum?
Know.
Yeah.
Maybe. Or maybe man museum? I don't know.
Well, here's the thing. There are people who believe that this skull is a forgery.
Oh, that's it's too detailed. It can't be.
Yeah, because there's actually a different piece of skull that is at the Lund University that was donated to them in 1780, and it also has an inscription on it.
Damn.
It says that it is Descartes' skull number 6.
What?
And this seems to imply that Descartes' skull was separated into 6 pieces.
Right. Interesting. And well, they thought that it was smashed when they opened the coffin, right?
Yeah.
So
an archaeologist and a curator, Karsten and Manghad, wrote this chapter, quote, "The True Skull of Descartes, a Critical Study, a Source Critical Study," which is a chapter in a book that traces the acquisitions of some of the Lund University Historical Museum's collections. So basically a book being these are our artifacts and where we got them from.
cool. Yeah.
Yeah, which is super great in our time of trying to repatriate things.
Yeah.
And being hey, our museum collection is not full of stolen shit.
Yeah, it's about accountability. I like it.
Exactly. So they are trying to assert that the piece of skull that they have at the Lund Museum is a real piece of Descartes' skull, which would make the skull with the inscription that's in France a forgery. And this is super controversial.
It's so detailed, but it's how did they know the name of the guard? Oh, that's so crazy.
Well, the name of the guard and the fact that he was possibly responsible for stealing the skull was actually public information in as late back as 1750.
Damn, they threw that guy under the bus hard.
Yeah.
Okay, well then that makes total sense.
Adding even more to the possible fakery of the French skull is that it's got that big long inscription on the forehead, right? And then from there, it actually has on the skull listed the names of everybody who bought it.
That's one way to keep records, I guess, but
I know, right?
it's a skull. What? Did they just write it in pen? Is it carved? What's going on?
Would you care to see a picture?
Sure.
What I'm sending you first is the picture of the forged skull, and then what we think is the piece of quote-unquote real skull that's at Lund University.
Very interesting. It's creepy. It's
jawless. It's Very creepy.
Yeah. The writing is creepy. Huh. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I'm guessing there's no way to do like DNA testing. It's too late for that.
Yeah, we'll talk a little bit about how we can verify it later, but you're on an interesting track of thought. So what we do know about this piece of skull that is at the Lund Museum is that it was donated to the museum around 1780 by the wife of a Swedish bishop, and she was said to have owned the skull for some time before that. Okay, so when this little piece of skull was donated, it actually came in a small wooden, like, cup box thing. It's like this little goblet. I'll send you a picture. And this piece of skull fits actually perfectly inside this little container and is said to be kind of like almost like a scientific relic, you know, like they would do with religious figures.
Yeah, it's really creepy with the little skull on top.
It's got a little skull on top. It's got big chalice vibes.
The vibes that I get, honestly, it's like a box that you would put your tooth that you lose in, and then the tooth fairy takes it out of the box and leaves your money in there.
Yeah, but if the tooth fairy was a demon and also like put a curse on you and your family.
Right. Yeah. Ugh, haunted.
Yeah. So, like I was saying, the inscription on the skull piece seems to suggest that it is one of 6 pieces, or possibly more. And that this probably means that this bit of skull and the other bits were probably in people's private collections during the 1700s, which was a huge thing among European aristocracy at the time, was to have like almost like these little natural history museums inside their houses, which would contain, you know, taxidermied animals, plants, fossils, bits of human, you know, mummies, stuff like that.
Yeah, damn. Okay.
All the good shit.
Yeah. I guess we don't really do that now, but we have weird stuff in our houses on display, I guess.
Yeah, but
the vibes are different.
The vibes are a little different. I don't really want to own any human bones. I think I've said that on the show.
No, not at all.
Not without consent. So what all of this to say is what I really want to talk about is the practice of skull blasting.
What is that?
Oh, skull blasting?
Yeah.
Well, it is a technique that was used in the Renaissance and Enlightenment era to break skulls apart to sell them to rich fancy people and to anatomy schools.
Yeah, because a hammer just wouldn't do it.
Well, this process is fascinating because basically what people would do is they would take like dried peas or like rice, and then you would basically turn the skull upside down, fill it with the water and then the grains or the peas or the rice or whatever you have. And then the starch absorbs the water and expands and basically cracks open the skull in kind of a gentle way where you end up with like 6 to 8 larger pieces of bone, which grows your profit exponentially for this skull.
That is really fascinating. It reminds me of like bone runes.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like they would see how they break a certain way and that would dictate your future, stuff like that. It's a little bit similar. I don't know. It's weird.
Yeah, it's just it's an area of
it's more elegant than a hammer.
A bit. Like I said, this was for the collections of the hoity-toity who, you know, in this time, people really believed that there was a connection between the body and the soul, and to own part of someone's body was to, you know, have their soul in a way, or a piece of that soul. So to have the corpus of famous people, you know, of the time, like Descartes, would be super valuable to people. So like whoever got his head was like, I'm gonna split this up. I'm gonna make more money.
Yeah, I guess so.
And it really made me think about his study of the separation of the mind and the body. for someone who had their skull stolen and exploded, who was a great thinker. He had his mind blown later in life. And researchers in India actually tried this in 2014, and it took less than a day.
Wow. Interesting.
Right?
Not that I don't think we need to break skulls apart like that anymore. I think we should not display bones in our houses, human bones in our houses like we were talking about, but damn, that's interesting.
It's fascinating, and a whole other topic could be people's techniques of breaking skulls apart, because like that was a whole different rabbit hole I didn't even go down, because later there was a method called the Bouchonnet method, which was named for like a French surgeon, and that was basically like he was able to separate all 22 bones of the human skull, which was kind of unprecedented at the time.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah, we love the skull here.
We love it. Cranium City.
Cranium City. But basically, skull blasting was a cheap way to up your profit. And when it came to famous people, people were extremely willing to buy their remains. So I find it highly likely that that's what happened.
Yeah, I mean, anything to make a quick profit. We love it. No.
Yeah, but I mean, coming back to like the question of authenticity, of course, France is digging their heels in and saying their skull is real and they can trace the provenance back. They took a lot of time to do that. As you were kind of saying, DNA is not a super possibility because, like you were saying, the skull is a little old for that. And then we would have nothing to compare it to.
Yeah, the only daughter he had died. That's right. Oh, yeah. So he doesn't really have any descendants.
No, so there's nothing really we can go, yes, this is a definitive link.
Sure.
Of course, the researchers at the Lund University, one of them is confident that they have the piece of the skull, but the other one says that it's, scientifically accurate to doubt things and to always be questioning. And that from that, I would like to end with actually a quote from Descartes about doubt and skepticism. He says, quote, "If you would be a real seeker after truth, it is necessary that at least once in your life you doubt, as far as possible, all things."
Yeah.
So I think in the true spirit of Descartes, we should doubt both of these pieces of bone and keep looking till we find the truth.
Yeah. Healthy skepticism.
Healthy skepticism. You should treat everything in a museum with it.
Nice job. That was cool.
Thank you. I was just looking around on the old Atlas Obscura, and I saw the phrase skull blasting, and I was like, well, that's the rest of my night.
Yeah. Cheers to that. Well, my mind is blown. I'm gonna go clean up, so go ahead and listen to an ad.
There's a little brain on your microphone.
Ooh.
Are you into true crime?
Do you like unsolved mysteries?
Strange and forgotten history?
Bizarre alien abductions and classified science experiments? Then check out Cruelty Podcast.
We're your hosts, Willow Ahava, along with my best friend and next door neighbor,
Lillian Asterius, and my husband, Merriweather Asterius. Maris, say hi.
Hello.
Maris, short for Merriweather, and I host Maris Mondays as a bonus episode each week to start your Monday with something strange and unusual.
While the rest of the week, Lillian and I present a true crime case under a monthly theme and feature known and not so known cases. We've done everything from Vampire Month to honeymoon murders to cannibal killers.
Cruelty Podcast is an independent podcast made possible by our Patreon members. If you would like ad-free listening plus additional episodes and perks, find Cruelty Podcast at patreon.com/cruelty.
Whoa, that's 4 whole episodes a week.
Linktree/Cruelty has links to all our social media accounts as well as our Discord channel. Cruelty Podcast is a member of the Podmoth Network.
And that is all 22 of my skull bones back in my face. What do you think?
Perfectly aligned. You don't look like a Picasso painting.
Thank you. Way
Yeah.
better than last time this happened.
Mm-hmm. Well, diving into something else. Our
Diving?
second, we're diving. We're actually diving into a extremely haunted and controversial lake.
Oh my god, does the lake have some poor opinions?
Yes. I'd say yes. Or that, and people have some poor opinions about the lake.
I was gonna say, is this rake racist?
You're literally not wrong. So this is Lake Lanier in Georgia, and my sources for this were styleblueprint.com, an article from CNN, an article from Investigation Discovery, and then an episode of my favorite podcast right now, Morbid.
Shout out to them.
Now and always. Okay, so Lake Lanier is crazy as fuck. It's extremely haunted. It's not a real lake. It's not a natural lake. It's a man-made lake. And it was literally built atop multiple communities, just like pieces of the town, and they're all just on the bottom of the lake still.
Whoa.
Yes.
I think I've seen videos of people kayaking through this lake and like
Oh, I'm sure you have. If you go, YouTube is like full of videos of people that are diving in Lake Lanier, like visiting Lake Lanier, or just like people that are like me, kind of like summarizing the creepy history of it and like just some kind of highlighting some weird shit. Allegedly, there are like giant catfish in there too. Like some people say they're the size of like a 10-year-old.
Oh no, I don't want
Yeah.
that.
It's just a legend, but you know.
I choose to believe in the giant catfish.
Yeah. So since Lake Lanier's creation in the mid-1950s, there have been nearly 700 deaths.
What? That's nuts.
It's a man-made lake from the 50s. And let me say that again, nearly 700 deaths,
How is that even possible?
right? And at least around 200 of those deaths have been since 1994. So this is very much still an ongoing thing. The lake attracts between like 7 to 10 million visitors every year.
Whoa.
And I also want to point out that at least 27 of those deaths, they never found the bodies.
Oh, they're down there with the catfish.
Yeah, they're down there.
Oh, wow.
Down there 100%.
Have we talked about lakes and how filled with dead bodies they are?
I think this is a first for us, but I am kind of freaked out by lakes. I think one of the things, honestly, that freaks me out even more than, like, possibly swimming on top of weird shit is the, like, actual flesh-eating bacteria that they find in lakes all the time. Like,
That's fair.
That freaks me out so much. Like, I feel like I have to check my body for cuts before I go into a lake because I'm so freaked out by flesh-eating bacteria.
I didn't even know that was an option. I was over here just like thinking about lake monsters and all the dead bodies.
Yeah, I'm just gonna hit you with some knowledge. That's bad. And then there's also some really bad bacteria.
You always got to be on the watch for the bacteria.
That's right. So a little bit of history, even further back in the area where Lake Lanier now sits. So it was called Forsyth County, Georgia, and it had about 12,000 residents. A small portion, about 1,000 people in this town, were made up of this community. It was a black farming community called Oscarville. They were a lot of like formerly enslaved residents and descendants. A lot of them owned their own land. But of course, there was turmoil there because people suck.
Yeah.
And racism, was really aggressive in Georgia at this time and, everywhere. But so in 1912 specifically, there were 2 incidents that created just a lot of unrest. So one woman, a white woman named Ellen Grease, claimed that she had woken up to a black man like in her bed. And then there was also a woman named May Crow who her body was found beaten and raped in the woods. I don't know why they thought that that second case had to do with Black perpetrators, but they decided that they needed to take justice into their own hands. So basically a mob mentality was formed, and a lot of the Black people in Oscarville were pushed out of the county over time in the 20s and 30s, which is not okay. It's sickening, especially because it sounds like this was a community that was a thriving community, and it was full of people that had been former slaves or descendants of slaves. And what an amazing feat that they owned their own land after being enslaved. And yeah, they were taken away from their homes, basically pushed out of their homes by white people.
Super upsetting. And I feel like this is a trend in American history when a Black community is thriving, especially after post enslavement.
Mm-hmm.
There's a move by local white communities to tear them down and push them out.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And I mean, it wasn't specified in my sources, but I'm sure that land also belonged to indigenous people that were pushed off of their land. So it's it's a whole horrible cycle.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So we're getting to the mid 40s and then into the 50s. So this community is now ready to sell that land at, a good profit to the government because the government wants to take over the property for Lake Lanier. But not everybody was a racist asshole at that time. I hope that I'm okay with assuming.
Mm-hmm.
And some of the people that were asked to leave their homes were their land had also been in their family for generations. So it's how can you put a price tag on that? So a lot of just bad vibes, racially, generationally, just all kinds of stuff. Bad vibes there.
Yeah, seems like it.
So what kicked all this off, the reason that we even want this lake to exist, this is coming from the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. Congress in 1946 approves the River and Harbors Act, and they want to make more rivers and harbors across the city, or the country, excuse me. Atlanta, Georgia, which is a growing city, needs a water source, needs hydroelectric power. And I guess creating this lake is going to save some other communities from flooding by the Chattahoochee River. So there are some legit reasons to create this lake. Doesn't necessarily mean that it was worth relocating all of these people and a whole fucking town. So they named it after Sidley. I cannot talk. They named the lake after Sidney Lanier, and they were building this, or they were starting to fill up this lake. It took 5 years to fill this lake up because it's enormous.
Wow.
And they're building it at the same time as the Buford Dam, down a little bit ways away. So they're doing their best, I guess, but it's also just they're doing their best, but their best wasn't very good. And Lanier is a writer, a poet, a musician, but he was also a Confederate Army veteran. So,
oof, Georgia, why?
Yeah, you take land that is full of racial tension and just bad vibes, and then you name it after a fucking Confederate Army veteran. But sure, go ahead.
Yes, sure. Go ahead.
Go ahead. So like I said, it took about 5 years to fill the lake. They needed about 50,000 acres of farmland, which displaced somewhere between 250 families and 700 families, depending on what source you read. But 250 families is still a lot.
Yeah.
There were 15 businesses that were relocated, and then 20 cemeteries.
Uh-oh, Scadio. They never get them all.
I really don't think they ever can get them all.
They don't.
As much as they might have tried, I really don't think they could have gotten them all.
They never do. They never do. People think they can relocate cemeteries. It never works the way you wanted it to.
So basically, they buy up all this land. They level a bunch of the houses. So if you're diving there, you can find foundations of houses. You'll see like rubble. There's also like parts of bridges under there.
Whoa.
Which is so crazy. I saw some like underwater, like not satellite pictures, but you know what I mean? Like underwater pictures of it. All of the trees they had to be at least shorter than 35 feet below the surface line. Does that make sense? So any trees that were, I don't know how to even say this, but like, so the surface of the lake and then 35 feet down.
Oh.
And then as long as the tree didn't like go above that 30-foot line, they just kept it.
It's so weird.
Yeah, so there's a bunch of just branches and stumps and like just trees down there also.
Strange. Very strange.
The bridge is the craziest part. Like, and not only the like bridges, but like all the concrete and things that they made the bridge out of that they either blew up or is just sitting there. And then people are floating by on their boat or they're swimming by and they're like, ouch, what got me? Oh, that
Bit of rebar.
little old piece of the ground from the 50s.
That's so wild. And are there like quasi intact like buildings down there?
You know, it's kind of hard to say. Like, I didn't do a total deep dive on YouTube. There's just so much content on there that I like tried to watch a few videos and was getting kind of the same like grainy images of stuff. There was one image in a video where you could definitely see like a structure and a window and like pieces of bridges. I think in 2007, I want to say, there was a drought and it exposed this old like raceway where they would race cars, and part of the risers that people would sit on got exposed.
Oh, must have been so haunting to see.
And that shit still happens. Like, things will, as like water lines recede, things will just show up. Like old boats, there's cars down there, like there's all kinds of shit. And let's not forget, there's definitely bodies down there.
Yep.
And just in case you were wondering, Lake Lanier was never designed to be a recreational lake.
I was wondering.
Doesn't mean people don't do it, but it was never supposed to be done that way.
Y'all were not supposed to recreation on this lake.
So, one local diver, this guy's wild, his name is Buck Buchanan. He has a famous quote about Lake Lanier. Quote, "You reach out in the dark and you feel an arm or a leg and it doesn't move. That's creepy."
Yeah, guy, that is creepy.
I'd say that's pretty fucking creepy.
Yeah, guy.
I don't know what he means exactly by that. Like, he doesn't like, did he find a body down there, or is it like a feeling? I don't know.
Yeah, guy, is this a metaphor, or are you saying you found
literal?
Corpses? Yeah. Because the second one you gotta tell people about.
Right. So, Lake Lanier also has a ghostly lady of the lake.
Of course.
You know, all lakes should have some kind of famous ghost.
Mm-hmm.
The story goes that in 1958, two gals, Delia and Susie, were driving across Lake Lanier on a bridge. Susie lost control of the car and the car went off into the water. About a year after the accident, a fisherman found one of the bodies. But then 31 years later, they found her car and the other body.
Whoa, so they found them both?
Yeah, it took a while, but they did eventually find them both.
Wow.
The body that they found first was missing both its hands and toes, allegedly, and they weren't really sure who was who. But basically, there have been multiple reports of people seeing a lost woman in a blue dress, and she's missing her hands. So, Lady of the Lake, very creepy. I don't know why there aren't two ladies of the lake, because two ladies went in, but, you know.
Well, maybe the one that was found more immediately crossed over more quickly, and the other one was like, "Where's my gal pal?"
Yeah, we don't know.
Aw, female friendship from beyond the grave.
It's heartbreaking.
It is,
But
actually.
also nice.
Yeah.
So another famous story from the lake, this is actually from 2015. This is the tale of Kelly Nash. He vanished from his home in Beaufort, Georgia, which is very close to Lake Lanier, like I said, in January 2015. And then 5 weeks after he mysteriously vanished, a fisherman discovered his body in Lake Lanier a few miles from his home. This story just stuck out to me, and you'll see why in just a second. So police tell the family that he died from a gunshot wound and drowning. They have CCTV footage of him from the night before he went missing, so January 4th. He went to a gas station by his house, and he was on the phone with his girlfriend Jessica, and that was at 9 o'clock, and then by 11:30 he was home and getting ready for bed. And I guess Kelly was a congested king. Like so many of us. He had recurring sinus infections and I guess was not feeling very well. So he was sleeping on the couch that night so that his girlfriend could get a good night's rest.
A congested king. I'm
Do you
sorry.
like that?
I love that.
So his girlfriend Jessica did wake up and see him around 3:30 in the morning on January 5th. She was checking on him. He was actually awake and playing video games in the living room. But by 7:30, when she really got up to like let her dogs out, get ready for work, she couldn't find him. And he had left without his wallet, without his like phone, his keys, or his truck. The only thing that was like missing other than Kelly himself was his Glock 9mm gun. And that gun has never been found. And remember, he did die of a gunshot wound.
Fuck.
Also, Jessica noticed that their garage was open. So her like theory is that he might have heard something outside and just stepped outside briefly without like his wallet and all his stuff, and then somehow was murdered, and next thing we know, he was found in Lake Lanier.
That's so terrifying.
Isn't that crazy?
Yeah, it seems like he just like disappeared.
Oh yeah, and this is completely unsolved. They have no idea what happened.
Oh, that's so sad.
It's horrible. He's unfortunately one of almost 700 people that have died on this lake, and we don't know why. For him specifically, we have no idea, like, the circumstances. These are just two examples of cases at Lake Lanier that I thought were particularly interesting. There's a ton more. And like I said, YouTube is a great source if you want to learn more about Lake Lanier and get more of a visual. So some locals actually refuse to go to Lake Lanier, which is fair. I think I'm gonna boycott it, and I haven't been to Georgia ever, but I'm gonna say, yeah, let's boycott it.
Mm-hmm.
It's not only from a like history perspective, but from a safety perspective. Like, it's just not a safe lake to be swimming in or taking your boat in.
No, it was not built for recreation.
It's not, and people are just, they're swimming, they're fishing, jet skiing, doing whatever, diving. But yeah, there's so much bullshit under the surface. I thought this was interesting. One person actually has a change.org petition to close the lake altogether. Probably not going to happen, but I think it's a bold move.
Yeah, I support them.
But again, like I said, somewhere between 8 and 10 million people visit this fucking death trap lake every year. I am going to end with a quote about the lake that I think kind of says it all. Quote, "Once a lake of wild rivers, North Georgia is now broken with dams and human-made bodies of water that changed the ecosystem. Once a land that belonged to indigenous people, it is now buried under the water, making recovering of lost culture impossible."
Wow. I mean, said it all there.
Right?
But I think it evokes a kind of dark revenge for the land's history. And I think these types of bodies of water, even if they are unnatural, hold this kind of creepy allure, especially, if you know that there's creepy stuff down there.
Mm-hmm.
And you're not supposed to be there. People love going places they're not supposed to go.
Right. And, people apparently don't mind swimming in a lake with a catfish the size of a small child. I mind, even if there's a hint a hint of that, I don't want to be involved.
Even a catfish the size of an extra small child, I am not.
I'm done.
Yeah, that was fantastic. I love hearing about those kind of creepy bodies of water because they do have that,
Je ne sais quoi.
yeah, that kind of dark abyssal quality
Mm-hmm.
where it's like things can just disappear.
Yeah, they have. At least 27 people, their bodies have never been found. And I think this lake is like, I don't know if I'm exactly right. I think it's about 26 miles, like the lake itself.
Whoa.
So it's a big lake, but like where do the bodies go? It's not like it's going out to sea, like it's a lake.
To the
So
bottom. It seems
it's-
pretty deep if
Yeah.
there are trees that are under the 30, there's tree sizes and then 30
Yeah.
feet of water above that.
Right.
Like,
yeah.
That's
so hard to comprehend and like describe, but yes, exactly.
they're at the bottom. I mean, it's like the same thing with, it's similar to the Great Lakes, but on a smaller scale of like bodies go through decomposition and they sink, and the bottom of a lake is much colder and can sometimes be free of bacterias that are like necessary for like decomposition, so they just kind of sit down there.
Mm-hmm.
Which is
Waiting for
upsetting to
somebody
think about.
to paddle by and think, oh, what a lovely day in Georgia.
I wish those people could be found.
Yeah.
Even
I
if
don't
it
think
would
they
be
ever will
horrific. Yeah.
Yeah, I really don't think they will be. I think what you were saying about the town, like, just like the history of the town sets the tone for what happens on that lake now. It almost seems like, the lake is somehow taking its revenge. Yeah, it's creepy. It's sad. It's scary. It's a lot. It's everything.
It's everything. It's everything one could want from an artificial lake.
Yeah. Honestly, I don't like that. Just keep your lake the way God intended. I don't know.
Keep the Lord's lakes intact.
For God's sake.
If it took 5 years to fill, how long would it take to dredge to find all those people?
I mean, who knows? Global warming might help with that.
True. Way to put a silver lining on it, Katelyn.
Yeah, we might not have a planet to live on, but Lake Lanier might reveal her dirty secrets soon.
Hell yeah, that nasty bitch. Lake Lanier is a nasty bitch.
Oh, yeah, 100%.
Oh, well, thank you for spending this bone time with me.
Absolutely. Glad to be back with our boneheads.
Me too. It was a nice hiatus.
Mm-hmm. Except for the COVID.
It was a fun, weird, extremely uncomfortable vacation.
Yeah.
Involuntary vacation.
Yeah. Well, it's a new year, everybody. So, if you feel like maybe I want to give my favorite bone women, some love, we would love reviews, subscribers. My birthday's coming up. So, like, if you want to write a review about how cool we are, that would be a really excellent birthday present.
And you should end it with happy birthday, Katelyn.
Yeah, please do.
That's how we'll know. Well, we love you. Thanks so much for listening to us and joining us for these bone-tastic adventures. And I hope that whatever day you're listening to, you take a little bit of time to be nice to yourself. Bone voyage.
I loved that.
That was so soft, so feminine, this bone voyage. All right, love you, bye.
Thanks for listening to Anything Bones. Follow us on Instagram or Facebook at Anything Bones Podcast, or email us at anythingbonespodcast@gmail.com.
Thank you to Nick Kruger for our spooky music and Stephen Vetteroff
At Chubby Scrubby on Twitter,
for our jazzy vocals, and thank you to Camilla Franklin
at Camilla Strader on Instagram.
for our beautiful bony artwork.
Please rate, review, and subscribe.
I hate Mondays.
Yeah.